you're either totally satisfied or you're not. And so, we would often at the end of projects say, hey, are you totally satisfied with the work that we did? And if there was any sort of issue, we would take care of it. Sometimes those issues were, well, I think I paid $2,000 more than I should have. And we would refund them the money. And oftentimes that was the winning strategy. That for 15 years, doing that time after time after time after time. If I ever run into a situation where I feel like my credibility is being challenged, because I always sort of come back to myself and say, well, hey, I've left everyone whole for 15 years. I can't be that wrong here. You know what I mean? So, but that's all been driven by this sort of that thinking and way of thinking has all been driven around this sort of focus on, on our client and what their specific needs are. So, ties into details, ties into being focused with a limited set of resources, and then ultimately being focused and efficient ties into a either more profit, so you have happier employees. You can employ that back into your company in different ways, or it could be invested back into making your clients the work that you're delivering lower cost. Just flat out give it back to the client, and so that's a really good sort of benefit of being client focused is that you can actually. Although some would say it's more expensive to be client focused, I often found times it's actually a lot less expensive because we have all of our clients are happy. So rather than creating a lot of cost around a lot of unresolved issues. So is this all working?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, good. I'm going to move on then. This is really simple. This is another one that I'm going through a personal change right now, so it's particularly relevant to me, but it's planning with probability in mind. We look at all of our financial decisions. We look at three sort of views on it. Best case, highly probable case, and then the worst case. So oftentimes what I find is we're making decisions based on the best case, and we don't meet our expectations because we were planning for the very best. And so we were also spending at a level that exceeded what we could truly afford. Or we were taking actions before we could truly afford to take them. I mean, we run across that in the ATX equation where, I start getting ahead of myself, wanting to sell this sort of dream before we're ready to do it. But now what I'm learning to do is I'm learning to draw a really fine line between what is best case and what is highly probable, and I'm doing all of my planning based on high probability. And we're very conscious about the fact that decisions are being made on that line. So when people are distinguishing between those three different types, they know that their decision is going to impact a bigger picture at FG squared from a longer term planning standpoint. We're reviewing those financials weekly, and if things are getting out of line, from our highly probable case, then we start, managing the business differently. So, this is a newer one. I don't know how many of you look at your financials, but if you're not looking at your financials and you're not doing financial planning for your Bootstrap, you're probably not alone. But you are also leaving a lot of chance, or a lot up for chance, and you could take more sort of sort of control of your financial success if you pay closer attention to your financials and really focused on spending less than you're making on a regular basis. Scaling your costs so that they're no more than what you're spending regularly, and doing it based on a high probability versus just what you think could occur if all the planets align.
I think that's probably one point that will probably vary, but it feels like intuitively it could vary quite a bit depending on what kind of business you're in. If you're in a sort of service-based business where primarily you're scaling by hiring more people, there's maybe less upfront investment, although you could potentially get that. Versus a product-based business where you actually have to plan to.
Well, you're a bootstrapper, right?
Yeah.
So do you have much money to invest in losses?
Yes and no. I don't have money, but I have time, which ultimately.
But you're not paying yourself anything.
No, but there's opportunity cost.
But that's my point, is that if you're not paying yourself anything, then the cost of your business is nothing. So your business is actually running profitably. But as soon as you start paying yourself, then that it's going out of balance.
True.
So you need to be looking at, that's we weren't paying ourselves for the first year and a half in business because we had a single number on the wall, which was $345, which accounted for our utilities and our phone bill and our internet access. And we knew that we had to hit that $345 number every month. But, after we started hitting that number regularly and started actually having profits on top of that, then we started actually giving ourselves a salary. So.
Now, you as somebody who's been in business for a while, obviously I've been through years of spending less than we're making. It would seem like most businesses that are around for any couple of years and don't have outside funding are following that same philosophy. So what do you look at now? When you say you're watching your financials, what do you look for now? What patterns are you looking for? Ways you can spend your money for opportunity, or
really, I look at it in two different ways. It's all about investing to create value in times when you have more money than you're spending, or when times become a little bit more scarce. It's about generating cash by reducing your costs. So that your receivables that are coming in outweigh what you're spending every month, and you start, building your cash back up so that you have a longer fuse. But I personally, when I get into a situation where I have more money, you start looking at it strategically and saying, I have more money now. What bets do I want to make?
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing about where I am right now is that fundamentally the business that I was running 4 years ago, is fundamentally dead in 2010.
Because of the economy.
Because the revenue streams that we were bringing in at the time are no longer there. The particular services that we were provided are hyper competitive now with the market.
What was the
as
service?
It is. Just more traditional interactive web services, CMSs and corporate websites and stuff. A lot of that work has been either brought in-house or sourced to a lower cost provider, even if it's on a working typically for a global company that has a specific business unit that has a web presence. We would be working for that company as the provider. Now, I can't seem to win a bid for that kind of work, and I've explored why. But the places that I am winning bids on regularly, and it's growing, is in providing communities